Let's start.
Yep.
Hello, Nuno. Haven't seen you a long time. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to see you, Carlos. Haven't talked in a while.
Well, as you see, I'm still living here in the middle of nowhere. And what about you? What have you been doing?
Yeah, mate. I've moved to Lisbon, to the big city, to create my own electric scooter, so trotinette company called Mestpa.
Well, so as I told you, I'm living here in the middle of nowhere, but I have this idea of creating my own company. And I heard that working remotely is something new and it's something that people are doing nowadays. Do you have any experience on this?
Yes, Carlos. Yeah, working remotely can be both a bless and a curse. So I think that before we start this conversation, it's very important to give you a bit of context on the different approaches you can do. So there's the single side. So it's a team where everyone is co-located in the same physical location. Well, this is not remote. People can work from home, but that's a different. There's the multi-site, where you have two or more co-located groups at separate locations within a larger team. Okay. Um, Perhaps with more formal sub-team boundaries and responsibilities. There's the satellite workers, occur when you have most of the team co-located, but a few members working remotely, either from home or in another office. And there's the remote first, which in those days are still few companies, but is one everyone works in a separate location, usually from home or a shared office, and all the communication occurs online.
I think.
Probably sharing the wrong screen. Cool.
Oh, sorry, I'm back. The connection dropped for a few seconds. Sorry. So the problems of working remotely.
Very typical.
Yeah, so continuing with Nuno, what just said, I'm a bit intrigued. I am very interested in this area, but I'm very intrigued why so many companies choose to hire remote workers. Is it because it's cheaper? Do you think it's about that?
Yeah, a lot of people will tell you that the reason is cheaper labor costs, but it's not just that. Nowadays, we're facing in certain markets a lot of resources are hard to find. So you're facing resource constraints. Imagine like a market like San Francisco. So nowadays you need to look where people are available. Yep. So basically, can you move?
No. Just a second. Your mic is too close to your mouth.
Okay. Is it better now?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the war for talent is over and talent won. So if you want the best people, you have to look wherever they are. That's my advice to you, Carlos.
Okay, so I understand your idea. So, and what about the kind of people? What kind of people should I search for when trying to hire people that want to work remotely?
Yeah, what I looked for, essentially at the beginning of my electric scooter company, was mature people in terms of used to work in a remote environment, and responsible, that I could trust and make them accountable. These were two, especially at the beginning of the company. This was very important to have a stable and proper team to start with.
Okay. Is there any easy way to understand if someone is mature and responsible? What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it needs a lot of discipline, although a lot of people hate this word, but contrary to what people might think, working with agile methodologies, and especially remotely, needs a lot of discipline, especially around communication. Another point is that you should treat everybody as a grown-up. That's the kind of attitude you should ask for in any of your coworkers, and not anything below that. Because if you treat people like children, they will behave as one. That's why I mentioned that you need mature people.
Okay, so should this mean that I should avoid hiring junior developers? Is that it?
No. That's not what I'm saying. You should hire juniors too. People have to start somewhere, right? So the main thing that's important to you, for you to be aware, is that they will need more coaching and training in these practices. So I would advise that some co-located might be better as a starting point. It's good to have a blend of both when you're starting with this kind of practices. And as Uncle Ben mentions, with great power comes great responsibility.
Well, I still am a bit concerned in how can I know what people are doing when they are working remotely? How can I understand if they are, let's say, at a coffee shop or at the park? How can I understand exactly if they are really working or not?
It seems like you're talking about control. That's a very, very strong word. So yeah, there is a perception that if you can't physically see someone sitting at their desk, doing work or pretending to do work, that they're not getting anything done. But be careful, because this is a thing that stresses out a lot of remote workers, is this pressure of not being physically present. So you just feel that you have to deliver more and sometimes end up working more hours.
Okay, so let me rephrase my question then. So how can I know at what time are people working then?
Okay, so yeah, a good idea is to have the discipline to use a team calendar to keep track of people are on holidays or meeting, compromise, and so on for the upcoming week. So if you have a team calendar and it's open and you're working on a transparent way, you can, if you need to talk with someone, you can see their availability for this or for Slack or whatever you use. So, but it's important to set strict working hours. So remote doesn't mean always available. Just as one would if they were working from the office, right? So the work-life separation, it's still very possible. Some of my advice that I think you can help out with your coworkers is that if they can at home, find a different space to disconnect. It's very important to leave the office, even if it's a home office, in some way.
Okay, so in a way, we've been talking about two myths, right? About remote workers being slackers or about they being available all the time. In what way do you think this kind of myth affect the company culture?
Yeah, it's true that there are no interactions like in the kitchen or casual hallway stop and chats on remote teams. So social moments have to be baked into a remote dynamic, being written or spoken whenever you have a touch point. So people should have periodic FaceTimes to improve their relationships. That's really important. So, well, see, you don't need to control anyone. You just need to enable the system to work.
Okay, so I imagine that building trust is a bit harder in remote teams. Do you have any advices in how can I build trust when people are working remotely most of the time?
Yeah, so comms is a two-way street. That's really important, but this is not only for remote, which is very interesting. So make sure you listen as much as you talk. So especially if you have a team that's mainly online, it's really important to, it's better to over communicate than the other way around.
Okay. Should I also try to have FaceTime, at least at the beginning of the project? What do you think?
Yeah, at least from my experience, if you're able to introduce co-location and FaceTime whenever possible, or at least at the beginning of the project, that will surely be a plus for the project, the team, the company.
Okay, so but in a way, this means like treating everyone the same way, right? Being them remote or not.
Yes, so yeah, that's a challenge that a lot of remote workers face, and I hope you don't do that in your company. It's that treat everyone equally. So offer challenging and interesting work to all the teams. Don't treat the people that are further away as second-class citizens. So distribute the work evenly through the team. That's really important, and this happens a lot in distributed teams.
Okay, I understand. So, but I think we both agree that FaceTime is important at first. So, but imagine that FaceTime is pretty much impossible at first. For instance, for costs reason and so on, at the beginning, how can we move forward by starting the project without FaceTime?
And fortunately, technology nowadays helps us a lot, right, Carlos? So video chat, as we're doing right now, it's really good. When people are seeing faces, they will feel more comfortable with each other. So as a practice on this, it's important that you unmute your microphone and mute it when you're not talking. Keep laptops closed. Well, not the one you're using. It's not a good idea, but your phone is a good idea to be face down or any more screens so that you're focused like you should be on a meeting if you're meeting the person face to face, and ensure you're clearly visible, which I hope I am to you, on the video screen. So keep the camera on. You can have eye contact like we're trying. Let me lower. With people on the other side. That helps a lot of the communication if you can see everybody's faces.
Okay, should I try to do the same? Should I try to do this even when I'm having meetings with people, or at least with some people in the same room?
Yeah, even if you're not completely remote and you have a main office and you have some other people here and there, one remote equals all remote. It's really important. So this will help the remote people not feel that distance, and will make the team ready for when everyone is working remotely. This feels people, it's creating empathy with the person that is working from home or in any other country. I think this helps a lot. It's a very good practice.
Okay, interesting. So, but isn't this what we've been talking about now? Isn't this the same as defining the ways of working for a team or for a company?
Yeah, so it's really fundamental that you agree on team norms, or some other places can call it team charter, ways of working, whatever you want to call it. So independently, if you are co-located or distributed, agree on goals, practices, processes, tools, meetings, members, make it transparent and open, set clear guidelines and budgets for when the members can travel, what's the team budget. It's one of the best ways to support distributed work, is to make the ways of working of that team transparent and open. Carlos, you're frozen. I think you're having connection issues.
Very typical again.
Yep.
Okay. Can you give me any particular example of ways of working for remote teams?
Okay. So yeah, as I'm sharing with you, this is one example.
Could you hear what I said or not?
Yeah, I could. Yeah, it feels like we're testing the problems that remote workers face, right? Yeah. So there are a couple of companies that are mainly full remote, like 47 Signals, WordPress, Hotjar, where you can see this example. They have a lot of info online, so you have to prep the machine ready for remote work. So it's enabled the system on this way, and this is clear to all the company. How do they work? And even they decided to share it openly with the community, or whoever wants to see how they work. I hope it's not like the Spotify model that they don't do it.
Okay, but making everyone work the same way, this will add constraints and wouldn't allow people to experiment and work on practice or improve on their practices. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so my suggestion is foster consistency, but allow for local, meaning team variance. So centralizing frequent high impact issues, decentralize urgent or locally relevant decision making. So I think, I don't know how Char in detail has on that slide, but I think that if you have a company that you need this team to work on a different way to get this outcome, just let them do it. Let them be autonomous. They're responsible for it. So allow for various consistency.
Okay. So can you give me some advices about tools that will ease this kind of process that we've been talking about?
Well, it's not the tools that are important. Okay, this is very important. It's what you do with them. So you have to see what are the team, the company needs, and try to find the tools that adapt to them. Yeah, I use a lot of Slack, Zoom, as we're using right now, Atlassian, Trello, but yeah, it just depends on what are your needs.
Okay, so, and what about pair programming? Do you have any kind of, let's say, a recommendation for any tool to do that?
Yeah, mainly the teams I work with can use Slack or Zoom or any other general purpose screen sharing tools. But they become hard when one wants to share control. So there's a tuple, which is the logo in the middle, which is a tool designed specifically for remote pair programming. It's far superior than the other two other mentioned, but it has a significant price, unfortunately.
Okay, so besides this education within the team?
Sorry, Carlos, can you repeat?
Okay. I was sorry, even with the camera off, looks like the connection is not good today. I was asking if you have any kind of tips and tricks regarding communication besides these tools.
Okay, so it's really important to don't nag people all the time just because they are remote. So instead of nagging people, mention them if you're using Trello, Jira card you're working on. This will allow people to respond when they have the time and to have a clear history of the developments in the card they belong to. If you're mainly working on a flow, that's where you need to point. It's not worth pinging 200 times the person on Slack or whatever communication tool you're using. People won't get there. It's like going to your place at the office and are we there? Are we there? Doesn't work, right? So it's the same online. Another one is, and this is brings a bit back to the discipline is, before going on holidays, it's or if you're going to be out in some way, just let everyone know in the team. Fortunately, nowadays you don't have excuses with all the technology that surrounds us. So let the team know if you're all going to be away for a long period, how long. Just communicate. That's over communicate this kind of situation so that everybody's aware. Just don't put it on the calendar and hope for everybody to check the weeks in advance. So communicate with the team and leave the out of office and all that info.
Okay, so the other day I had a phone call with a friend of mine and he was in a coffee shop and it was really, really hard for me to hear and understand what he was saying. Do you have any experience in how can we prevent this from happening with remote teams?
Just simply don't work from noisy places, nor from places with low bandwidth. Carlos, you have to move from your house next time. That's the example. Also, it's very important to use a good headset with a proper microphone. Duarte already said that I was talking too close to the mic, so thanks for it. And especially if you have a microphone with noise canceling, like this one, it helps a bit. Doesn't avoid everything, right? And apart from it, people should mute their microphones too when they're not talking. That's a really important practice. Okay,
so with so many tips you've given me so far, I have a really more general understanding of remote working. But why do you think that remote working is such a good option and so many companies are following this option nowadays?
Well, I can give you an example, but apart from what I previously mentioned, imagine for customer service. So you can have extended working hours. If imagine that it could be possible to give 24, I wouldn't say 7, I hope people don't work on weekends, but if that happens, to give a 24-hour customer support. Because you have people distributed and you have a good flow between teams when how to solve problems. In another case, if you host a recurring meeting, what I would advise if teams are distributed is try to rotate the schedule to ease the time zone burden. That's another tip that I would give.
Okay, so it still bothers me a bit in how can we manage to work together with people in completely different time zones. It's basically it's what we've been talking now. So can you share a bit more about your experience in this?
Okay, first of all, agree on working hours, especially with different time zones. Embrace communication across distributed time zones, work schedules. That's really important. And that's why we have the sync versus async. And especially on the async one, plan ahead. And it's not PMY type of planning, but try to avoid having decisions made at the last minute. It's still agile, okay? Don't worry, it still has the label, but you have to work with what you have. So it may seem like extra work, but it's actually more organized, okay? It just depends on the team, really. And in this case, and if you're working from home, typically leads to less distractions. So imagine, Carlos, you have less office politics, a quieter noise level, at least I hope, less or more efficient meetings where we try to push as much, but that should be on the office too. Trim the fat out of all meetings. You have the ability to dress more casually and comfortable, which is not my case today, but I went to the office. And as mentioned above, a more personalized office environment. So you can have your own space, and hot tasking is a thing that happens a lot nowadays, but it's not the same thing as having your own space, and you can make it cozy, and you should. And really important thing is, in the end, you want to get shit done. So for me, I don't care where the team I'm working with is working. You can work from anywhere. You shouldn't care where you work from, as long as you feel comfortable and are able to do your job properly. I hope you have a good toilet to do this, or not. But yeah, that's the main point for me, always with my company.
Well, so now I fully understand the value of remote work, but it still bothers me a bit in how can I handle a difficult meeting when in a remote environment. For instance, imagine I need to fire someone, or we need to do a retrospective. How can we do this kind of difficult meetings in a remote environment?
So Esther Derby created these 8 principles for remote retrospectives, but I believe these 8 principles can help out not only in retrospectives, but globally as meetings overall. So let's go quickly through them. So first, design to equalize participation. If you set up a meeting, make sure that everybody can participate in the same way. That's all the one remote, all remote. Structure. So again, this is not only for remote meetings, but I personally suggest that you send some structure ahead of time. So a simple agenda and a goal for the meeting fits the purpose. The third one, enhance on replace visual cues. It's harder on video. It's harder on the phone. But you can use a set of cards. There are a couple of ones. I have them here somewhere. So just give me a second and I'll show you. Where we can use the superpower remote cards, and I can say to Carlos, you're frozen, which is not the case right now, or I have got to go. And that way you don't have to interrupt, but whoever is facilitating, or you're on mute. And as you can see, you can download it, and it can help out on the visual cues for whoever is facilitating the meeting without completely stopping it. The fourth one, help people remember who is there. So once you start, do a dry run on just sound checking like you were on a gig. If you are receiving sound from the other end, and if everybody is on who should be there. Fifth, actively engage people. So it's harder to do group activities, but if you feel that someone is pretty silent, you should push for that person to step in. That's why the video camera, apart from the sound, it's really important. So the sixth is use a back channel. So it's really important that you have a backup. So if Zoom wasn't working, in this case, we agreed with Duarte that we would have a Hangouts prep to do this talk. Know your tool. So it's important before you start using a tool with your team, with clients, that you do a couple of dry runs. So if you're using it for the first time, use more than one tool if needed, but get to understand what you can do or what you cannot do with the tool you have at hand, because that might mean that you would change from Zoom to another one. And especially don't let tools dictate your format. If you think about retrospectives, of course, you can, in some cases, do it probably a bit easier if you were all in the same room. But fortunately, you have so many tools today online, or you can do some drawings, take a pic and put it on Google Draw and let people use sticky notes or Nairo. You have so many tools nowadays that you can basically mimic the connection you would have on with everyone on the same space. And basically, these are the 8 principles for remote meetings for me.
Okay, so I'm completely sold on this idea. I'm going to open a remote-friendly company with all the advices you've given me so far. So before we go, do you have any more tips and tricks you want to share besides the ones that we've already spoke?
Yeah, this one is really important. You're not Bart Simpson. So one thing that really pisses me off is use a proper avatar, especially if all the global team platform, and have your name available and role clear for everyone inside and outside your company, especially if you haven't got the time to meet the person. It's really hard when you get to a board and you see Marge Simpson, Bart Simpson, and Homer Simpson, and still you have to connect that Homer Simpson might be Duarte and Marge might be you, Carlos. Sorry for that, but so it's even harder to create a connection when you don't, when I cannot see your face or relate who am I talking to.
Okay, so but in a way this connects with empathy, isn't that right?
Yeah, empathy is fundamental, and so especially when we're talking about remote work, there's a lot of communication that's written communication, right? So it's very important that you assume that positive intent. So try to always assume positive intent. So when the tone and nuance can very easily get lost over chat. So assuming your colleague or coworker or even client, if you're doing consultancy, is coming from a positive place, helps with any potential misunderstandings. If they happened, it's better to try to have a call and get it cleared out.
Okay, so have you done any practice that encourages empathy within the teams that you've worked on in the past?
Yeah, so one-on-ones, it's really important, not only for remote teams, but it is fundamental, even when, especially when people are remote, despite having some limitations. It's very important for you to create this connection and try to understand the person. Where right now I want to do a deeper dive on one-on-ones, but yeah, it's very important that you keep in touch apart from the meetings where the whole team is. Another one is treat people with transparency. Again, it seems like these are remote practices, but this should be independently of the type of team you have or where you are. This is really important. So keep important information accessible for everyone. So imagine log side chat decisions, record video meetings. Always take notes to share in the public channels of the decisions made. So also, don't share information with just one person with the team. Share it with everyone so that everyone feels empowered to change and comment on that. You'll get much more out of people and better outcomes.
Well, so as I told you before, I'm completely sold on the idea, and I'm already thinking about creating the job offers for the positions I want to hire. What kind of perks do you think I can include in these job offers? What have you done in the past about this?
Okay, so there's a lot of talk about work-life balance. I believe that it should be more of a work-life blend, especially in this case. So we only have one life, not two separate ones. And your work should be as interesting as your life. So the thing that helps you being remote or trying to agree on this is to have, as an example, a flexible schedule. It may allow for you to pick up the kids from school, go to the doctor, go shopping, find your most productive time. Just depends on the teams, the time zones, but just try to make it work for you and for your team and company. And that's basically what you can get out of it. Then there's more free time, so no commuting. I was almost arriving late due to the commuting. So you avoid all this big traffic or being like a sandwich or a sardine on the tube. Those are things that you can avoid by working from home. With this, of course, it leads to time saving. So I expect that you have more time with your family. Hope that you use that time properly to have extra sleeping time. You avoid the stress from commuting and you work from wherever you want. That will lead to better health in a variety of ways. Think you should have more time for physical activity. Running to catch the tube, I wouldn't call it proper physical activity. The ability to eat healthier, although a lot of people bring their own food to the offices. You are very tempted for easy food on the food courts. So at home, you have to cook your own food, or you should mainly. You have the ability to recover from illness or surgery at home. And especially you're less exposed to illnesses. So imagine how many people got sick on the way to the office, or even being exposed to other colleagues in the office. I remember several times one started being sick on 1 week, they had to go to the office. After 2 weeks, basically all the team was ill. And you have the option to create a comfortable, and you should, an ergonomic workspace for you to work where you feel good about yourself.
Hey, Nuno, I have to go now, but I will start this big adventure of creating my own company, and I will keep in touch with you about the results.
I lost you again, Carlos. See, we're definitely doing a talk remotely. Carlos, are you back? Can hear you.
But I have to go now. Okay, I need to go now, so I will keep you.
Okay, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to hear you. Let's keep in touch, mate. Anything, feel free to ping me.
Okay.
You're not sharing the screen.
No?
Nope.
Can you see the screen now?
Yep, now we can.
Okay. Oops. Sorry about the problems.
You're presenting the speaker notes?
Yeah. There's a problem with the two screens now.
There you can see Duarte again.
Yeah.
Smiling in that case.
Do you want to share yourself?
Yeah, you can move on with that one. Basically, we wanted to share with you guys before we move to the Q&A a bit of the making of. So let me try to do it on my side as we're facing some challenges. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so basically
Yeah, sorry about the problems.
Yep. So basically how me and Carlos did this, so we got together one day physically in the same room, and this was kind of the user story mapping that we did to come up with this talk. Then it moved to a Trello board where we reviewed each other's work, a very simple workflow in this case. Then I recommend, if you want to know a bit more about working remote, that you go through all these 5 books. The Year with No Pants, which talks about WordPress, the one Remote from 37 Signals, Work Together Anywhere from Lisette Sutherland. She was the one creating these cards. Thinking Remote, both Lisette and Pilar Orti and Maya Middlemiss have very interesting podcasts on remote working. And then in the middle you have by Zapier. It's a free book. This one, The Ultimate Guide to Remote Work, where they share their experience. So Carlos, do you want to present yourself?
Yeah, so as Bart said at first, my name is Carlos. I've been working for Equal Experts for 3.5 years. I'm a software engineer. And so basically that's it. We've been working for a lot of clients in different places, and we've been working mostly in these conditions that we described in this presentation. But no, go ahead, present yourself.
Yeah, so I started 1 month later than Carlos at Equal Expert, so I'm a delivery lead. I've worked as a product owner, project manager, business development for several companies in the past. And as Carlos was mentioning, yeah, this is basically the map of the last 3.5 years. All the countries that we have worked with. So from the North America to South America to a lot of places in Europe. That's mostly where we have been working on. And that's it. Thank you very much for joining us. And I think I'll pass the ball to Duarte for us to move to the Q&A.
And let me just say I'm sorry about let's say the connection issues. Usually it's not like this, but sorry.